17th of August. This day is going to be a very decisive day for all Sri Lankans, the general elections 2015. I'm in conversation with an individual who has spearheaded the Sri Lankan political landscape, and he has done much work over the last few decades. Now, he is none other than the leader of the Mahajan Peramuna and also former Minister Dinesh Gunawardhan. Mr. Gunawardhan, thank you very much for joining us right here on Biz1st Infocus. Starting off, Father, Mr. Philip Gunawardhan and P.H. William Silva. Since then, have you been able to carry out their legacy forward?
1956 was the formation of the Mahajan Peramuna, and Mahajan Peramuna was swept to power because people wanted a change that would give their aspirations a place in government and the future of the country. Most of the programs earmarked and launched since then, I would say right up to 77, have been based on the foundations that were laid in 56. Many reforms.
Have you been able to take your father's legacy forward?
I have been able to protect some of the work done by my father and the MEP, as well as propose new thinking into the political programs by which the MEP would contribute in Parliament and in government. Some of those have been accepted even by our political opponents, such as the electoral reform, which was proposed by me. I was finally had to chair the election commission. Mandatory provisions for the identity card for voting, which was a proposal that we brought, and many other aspects in terms of development work, protection of the unitary state of our country. The MEP championed this cause when no other political parties stood for the principle. So in many other fronts, and in the education front, even to make the 18-year-old of our country legally given the status of operating bank accounts, was proposed by the MEP.
Since 1994, your party has not contested a general election individually or independently. However, in 1960 we saw MEP gaining 10 seats in the assembly. What is the reason for this? Is it because the mandate or the trust placed by the people on the Mahajan Peramuna is slowly fading away?
Mahajan Peramuna did run on its own in '89, and we got 3 members into Parliament. And MEP has been, of course, since '56 proposing the grand alliances and fronts against the United National Party that would bring strength for the formation of a government which would have due consideration and a role for the MEP policies and principles, on which this is the progressive movement in our country. They were all united, though they are separate political parties, under one front to gain political power and implement programs which they would agree on.
Many are of the opinion, a general opinion is the fact that many political parties who are affiliated with the United People's Freedom Alliance are clinging on to the UPFA because they do not have a voter base. What are your thoughts on this?
No, I can't agree to that principle. All political parties in this country finally work around a key party. If you take the United National Party, you see the SLMC, you see so many parties, Champika Ranawaka, and political parties going into alliance with the UNP. The UPFA is also an alliance which was started for progressives and patriotic political parties. All of us pool in our strength of our voter base in order to achieve the edge that is necessary to win an election.
Mr. Gunawardhan, let's talk about the August 17th general elections. Why did you back former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who was defeated on the 8th of January? What is the reason behind this?
Mahinda Rajapaksa, I think, is the only president who was able to save our country. In the face of a terrorist threat, all others failed. And he was able to lead the country to victory, which is not just a victory against terrorism. It protected our country from disintegration and breaking up into 2 or 3 states. This is a historic contribution to our country. And then Mahinda Rajapaksa went on the economic development path and resurrected our economy to a 7% growth. It was not only 1 year, a couple of years we were able to deliver this to the country. Restore all services in the north and the east to normalcy. Bring back provincial administration to the north, local government which did not function for 30 years. So Mahinda Rajapaksa contributed to all facets of our country's economy, our democratic movements, franchise, elected representation and economic development. Perhaps there was enough criticism of him because he ran for the 3rd time. Why should Mahinda Rajapaksa run for a 3rd time? Was the key issue. And then rallying round the forces to defeat him. But Mahinda Rajapaksa polled 5.8 million votes for the UPF.
But he still lost the elections on the 8th of January.
It is true that in an election when all other forces rallied round against him, he lost by 4 lakhs of votes. But that I don't think is a defeat. All political leaders have lost and come back. You take Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, he lost so many times, came back. You take Mrs. Bandaranayake, take Mr. Dudley Senanayake, Mr. Jajavadana, lost and came back. It is up to the people who gives the trust to a leader and his political party to form a government and a mandate.
Who is the leader of the United People's Freedom Alliance?
At the moment, our candidates and political parties have elected Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa as the chairman and the leader of our election campaign.
Who is the leader of the United People's Freedom Alliance, the party?
There could be leader. Officially, the leader is the SLP leader becomes the leader of the UPFA.
Who is the leader of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party now?
At the moment, it's President Maithripala Sirisena.
Who do you consider as your leader?
Of course, the popular leader of our country is Mahinda Rajapaksa. There are no 2 words. But Maithripala Sirisena still holds officially the chairmanship of the party, therefore the leader of the SLP, and therefore the leadership of the UPFA. We know that Maithripala Sirisena, a seasoned politician, is the president of the country for another 6 years. So we work with him also.
Since the appointment of President Maithripala Sirisena to the post of President and Chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, a faction has split. Do you think there is a split within the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the United People's Freedom Alliance at the moment?
No, I don't think the UPF has split. Those who have...
However, addressing the nation 2 weeks ago, the President said that he is going to act neutral at the elections, and he said that he was against giving nominations to the popular leader that you call now, that is the former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. There seems to be a split, isn't it?
No, I don't think that's a split.
What is this called?
President Sirisena expressed so many opinions in this grand speech, not only about UPFA and its leader and its how we work, about the UNP leader and how he has worked also. So that is the President's view, but he as head of the party has approved all the candidates who are contesting under UPFA, and it is his consent too that contributed to Mahinda Rajapaksa coming in to contest and becoming the chairman of the election campaign that will win the election for the UPFA and be elected to form the government as the Prime Minister.
The President during his speech made a very interesting remark. He said that there are many seniors within the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the People's Freedom Alliance who are more deserving than the former President to be nominated as a Prime Ministerial candidate. Was he referring to individuals like you?
I don't know, I have had so many chats with him, but I think he is very clear on what is going to happen.
What is
and it is the outcome of the election, and if the UNP is defeated, he will call upon the leader of the election campaign and the unanimous choice of the MPs, as we have pledged today in Anuradhapuram first meeting, to elect Mahinda Rajapaksa. Now the opinions expressed, we have had this opinion. We have had Jayawardena running under Dudley Seranayake, but everyone saying that it is not Dudley who should be Prime Minister of the UNP, but Jayajay. But Jayajay stood with Dudley and gave Dudley Seranayake always to lead, because he was the popular leader of that time. So there are issues on both camps like this. There was Mr. R. Premadas, who had a battle with Lalit Atulat Mudali and Gavini Disnayaka. Let us not forget, for who's to succeed President Jayajay.
However, the President has been very clear that he has not nominated anyone right now as a Prime Ministerial candidate of the People's Freedom Alliance. Is that right?
We have had the party leaders established to lead the campaign in
Who
a
should the
committee.
people vote for? Let me put it this way, Mr. Gunavarman. Who should the people vote for? Is it President Maithripala Sirisena or is it former President Mahinda Rajapaksa when they go on this, to the polling booth on the 17th of August?
No,
who should they vote for?
President Maithripala Sirisena is not a candidate, and it is the most popular candidate of today who polled 5.8 million. Mahinda Rajapaksa for the Beetle UPFA, who's there today. So people will vote for him. Of course, he's contesting in a district. So in every district, UPFA will have different candidates. But the UPFA's overwhelming support and the support of the country still lives. Of 5.5 months ago, 5.8 million casted their vote to the Beetle leaf for Mahinda Rajapaksa.
With a majority of 400,000 votes, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa lost the elections. Is it because the former regime was corrupt? Was this a reason? Or is there any other reason?
No, it is a united effort of all forces, political and non-political forces who wanted to get Mahinda Rajapaksa out. And internationally also, they wanted Mahinda Rajapaksa, the President of Sri Lanka, who was supposed to be a strong man of the third world, out. Of course, you can always accuse any leader of a country. You can make allegations and say this went wrong, that went wrong, all that. That is a different aspect. But the main thing is he protected the country, and the economy was sound and stable with a 7% growth. The rest, he is answerable if there have been any things as accused. But all these acquisitions are outside the law.
In 2005, the UPFA introduced the Mahinda Chintana. 2010, we had the Mahinda Chintana and the Giridakma. And 2015, you all had another extended version of the Mahinda Chintana. However, now, you all have a new manifesto, which is called A Guaranteed Future. Mahinda Chintana is not in place anymore, is it? Or you all have found out that this cannot be implemented?
No, Mahinda Chintana created the necessary groundwork and the takeoff for Sri Lanka. Now it is a matter of resurrecting the collapsed economy under the UNP regime in 5.5 months. All our key sectors have collapsed. Political stability has collapsed. And the UNP itself, which was wanting oxygen to carry on government, failed to carry on government, and President Maithripala had to dissolve because the UNP could not sustain in Parliament. This is the truth. And we are proposing a new program for Sri Lanka because a new program is necessary for a developed country and a developed economy. This is what the challenge that we are going to achieve for our
But most of the promises
people.
made in the Mahinda Chintana, Mr. Gunawardena, has not been implemented.
No, most of the promises in the Mahinda Chintana was implemented. I think the Mahinda Chintana went further than some of the pledges it made.
2005, the Mahinda Chintana promised to abolish the executive presidency, but did not happen for 9 years.
The problem is the executive presidency has not been even abolished today, because you need certain mandates to abolish an executive presidency.
However, you raised your hand on the 19th Amendment of the Constitution, which abolished the 18th Amendment of the Constitution and brought in new reforms.
Definitely, we are committed, the MEP is committed for the abolition of the executive presidency, though 30% only was abolished under 19th Amendment, because the Supreme Court wanted Parliament to refer it to a referendum. All those clauses were dropped. So this is the obstacle and the problems in the Constitution in order to make dramatic or big changes. But eventually parliamentary power, executive power will and should be transferred to
But
Parliament.
President Maithripala Sirisena had a genuine interest to abolish the executive presidency.
He pledged himself for the abolition of the executive presidency.
However, let's take a look at the 20th Amendment of the Constitution, and you were very vocal about this as well in Parliament, saying that electoral reforms need to be brought following a thorough discussion and a public discourse about it. You are very vocal about this in Parliament as well. So, what is your take about the electoral reforms that was pledged by President Maithripala Sirisena? And you being a part of the UPFA was against bringing this in as an urgent bill and so on and so forth. What is the reason behind this?
No, UPFA in principle did support electoral reform. I myself headed the electoral reform committee
I
of
remember
Parliament.
10 years you were in this.
Yes, and we were
committee.
pushing right through, and we brought the electoral reform for the local government, which is now in the law books. That was done by the UPFA with the consent of our political parties in Parliament, and for the parliamentary electoral system to be changed. The 20th Amendment faced their own camps, opposition, SLMC, TNA, some members of the UNP openly criticized the 20th Amendment. They sabotaged. It is not correct to say that the UPFA opposed. UPFA stood by, and we said we will support the electoral reforms. I hope we can get through the electoral reforms, because that can relieve the unnecessary burdens of the candidates that have been pushed on the voter today.
Mr. Gunawardena, you've been in this particular committee for nearly 10 years now. However, even you couldn't bring in reform. What is the reason behind this? Is it because the political authority is not giving you that extra bit of permission needed to go ahead?
No,
And this was the former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who was there during the last 10 years as the leader of the UPFA. He did not have a genuine interest to bring in political reforms.
No, he did support with the local government electoral reforms, which were opposed by some sections of his party. We overcame, and we introduced it to Parliament, and it was put into the law books, and reforms, and the constituency system is now in place for local government, which is a big change. And now then thereafter, in order to get the parliamentary reform, one needs a two-thirds, which is the most important problem in constitution change. Secondly, some sections can be referred to a referendum.
However, the 18th Amendment of the Constitution was brought in with a two-thirds majority. The UPFA did not have a two-thirds majority at that time. Just 2 weeks or 3 weeks prior, you all were able to make this two-thirds. If there was a will, there's always a way, Mr. Gunawardena, isn't it? Do you agree or disagree with that?
No, I agree. I mean, we should have gone forward, but going forward and perhaps risking a breakup of the government is also a political decision a leader takes, because our government had so many partners. outside the UPFA being party in government, like the SLMC, Richard Group, and so many sections. So when you run government, you see it today also, certain sections suddenly decamp, and 2/3 is lost as a result. If we lost the 2/3, it would have boomerang on the political work, which was more important. That's why we pledged at the last elections, presidential, that we will go for reforms in a bigger scale. And today in our manifesto, we have committed ourselves very clearly that we will go for major political reforms of our establishment.
You said during one of my earlier questions that there was some certain international countries, certain countries in the world who wanted former President Mahinda Rajapaksa to lose the elections, and you said that they somewhat ensured that he lost the elections. Do you care to name these countries?
No, it is very clearly that the Western world did not like Mahinda Rajapaksa.
Only the Western world.
Mahinda Rajapaksa's
Was it only the Western world?
It is the key element is the Western world. It is through the Western world that others can be influenced. I mean, the 9/11 in what happened in New York City shook the whole world, and the United Nations was summoned immediately when the US proposed for all-out attempts to...
This was at 3 a.m. at the Security Council meeting.
Security Council meeting, where in order to defeat terrorism, Sri Lanka was the first country that defeated terrorism. What happens next? In a matter of weeks, the US and the British government moves a resolution against Sri Lanka at the UN Human Rights Commission. I mean, this itself showed from there, this whole movement has been to dislodge the leader who brought the victory.
Is there an international conspiracy now to defeat former President Mahinda Rajapaksa? Right now, as we speak?
They would prefer, I think, not having Mahinda Rajapaksa, but they would also like to compromise, knowing the feelings of our countrymen, that he can't be dislodged in that manner.
2009, right after the war ended, 48 hours prior, we had UN General Secretary Ban Ki-moon arriving in Sri Lanka. Why didn't the former president oppose his arrival if he knew something like this would happen?
You see, the former president has been a very senior politician, working with all the international agencies. He has never gone against any of the international agencies' working arrangements, as we are members of the UN. But being members of the UN also, it is not only to say yes, but also to say no, we would differ on this matter and propose this. This is how our country national leaders have acted. This is Bandaranaike.
However, several years after the former president's regime, and you were part of this particular regime in question, you all were opposing any such moves, not even a visit by a UN panel to arrive in Sri Lanka and do an assessment on what exactly happened during the final stages of the conflict, Mr. Gunawardena.
No, most of the UN agencies who were here were involved in assessing the situation as well as post-war work. Sri Lanka did not reject the UN in total.
Are you aware of the joint statement that was signed between the former president and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, which says that a domestic mechanism will be introduced and the international investigations, that is the UN-led panel, could do the needful with regard to the final stages of the conflict? And this is a result where the Darusman report comes into play several years after, which again your government opposed. So there is no exactly international conspiracy. It was something that former President Mahinda Rajapaksa itself signed and agreed upon in the year 2009. Or did he change his mind afterwards?
No, I mean the processes have to be to abide by certain accepted norms. Just because a commission can accuse, it does not mean that the commission has been 100% correct. That is why we appointed a couple of commissions headed by eminent people, which the UN itself accepted. Now, the APRC and such commissions went into the whole matter with all representatives and brought out certain reports.
But even the recommendations of the LLRC report was not implemented in full.
LLRC commission reports, most of it had begun to be implemented. And then we appointed the special commission by a former Supreme Court judge to go into the disappearances, which also has taken the route. They have gone to the north, they have gone to most of the areas.
One of the allegations levelled at the UPFA is the appointment of commissions and not action has been taken, Mr. Gunawardena. How do you counter this? You see a lot of commissions being appointed. We saw a commission being appointed to look into the incident that took place at the Valikada prison, but nothing was done. And we saw the present regime, Vidyas Rajapaksa, bringing out this report in question, and now even the LLRC report, so on and so forth. So only limited to commissions and not actions.
Yeah, those who make such allegations should practice what they preach. They had 5.5 months. Okay, if you say Mahinda Rajapaksa did not implement all the commission reports in the hands of the President and the Prime Minister, what have they done for 5.5 months? But they have been only accusing the former regime.
Mr. Gunawardena, you are a very senior politician. You've been in Parliament for over 2 decades. Can you govern a country in 6 months and come into a conclusion?
Of course, governing a country to mismanagement is a serious issue that every countryman and politician should give their attention. Today our economy has collapsed. You elect a government to run government. Our political stability has collapsed. We may say we have brought change, but the change can only sustain if we sustain these areas where the country's future lies. Why have this happened? Eminent men were running the economy, they say. Senior politicians were running the country. All sectors have collapsed. Employment, construction sector, tea trade, plantation, rural agriculture, paddy agriculture, rubber, small industry. This is how a country's economy is based on. Political side, what has the governing United National Party done?
The general notion right now is the fact that on the 8th of January, the minorities contributed somewhat for the defeat of the former president. 17th of August this year, 2015 general elections. Do you think that the UPFA will again get the support of the minorities?
The minorities too are human beings. If they don't get work, if their industry is collapsing, if their work in estates and rubber is collapsing, obviously they will vote against. The whole issue is mainly the economy. If you cannot live, if you cannot get the delivery that you have been waiting for, you oppose the regime.
Minorities are pressurizing, or they want their rights as well. We saw an incident that took place in Yatnur recently where the Yatnur Pradesh Sabha chairman was arrested, Mr. Gunawardena, for putting up a distorted national flag. How are these incidents affecting your campaign trail?
No, I think the constitution of our country should be respected by all who aspire to go into parliament.
But such a similar flag was even put up during a demonstration opposite the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery and corruption as well.
Yeah, they were all taken before court, members. They were given bail. So they were before court.
And a public apology was made by former Minister Dalla Salhapiram as well.
I don't think we are going to support any such extremists. We have not. Berwal incident, Alugama incident, President Rajapaksa moved into the spot immediately that he returned to power. And those elements who are behind this are today leading the UNP campaign. And how can you put one and one together and say, put the allegation by the minorities on the UPFA? You see, the elements who were being suspected, who were behind this, is today supporting the United National Party. These political leaders, so-called political leaders. So this issue has to be properly, respectfully adhered to by political parties. we want the minorities to enjoy the rights that they have to enjoy as citizens of our country. That is enshrined in the Constitution.
I go back to one of my questions that I asked you earlier, Mr. Gunawardena, because we are now at the foot of our interview. If you are given the chance to maybe the Prime Minister of the country or even maybe the opposition leader of the country, will you take it up?
I have to be given the entrusted by any office by the UPFA and not by any other individual.
Why are you rallying behind a defeated president if this is the case?
A defeated president can always run and get elected.
But your chances of being appointed as the Prime Minister or the opposition leader is going to be very grim because of this.
For the last 75 years, the Gunawardena family has sacrificed for the sake of our country and our people. We stand for principles more than the office that we get.
Mr. Gunawardena, my final question is revolving around the Colombo district. You have many individuals, Vimal Veeravansa contesting from Colombo, yourself, Dinesh Gunawardena contesting from Colombo, you have Susil Premajayanta, Bandula Gunawardena, and you have even Uday Gammampilla, who are all leaders of political parties. Why must someone go to the polling booth on the 17th and put their preference before you? What must they keep in mind?
The continuity of trust. I have had one clear vision which the people would know. From the day that they sent me in '83 to Parliament, I have not let them down, but I have had a continuity. In politics you must have continuity. Keep on changing your policies, your position and alliances, then it is up to the people to decide whom they should vote. And clean sheet of work as well as clean sheet of trust which I have kept, and an ability to deliver for my country and my voter and represent Parliament in a credible manner, which I have done. I think this is enough. They gave me a mandate last time and I trust they will give me a heavyweight mandate to be elected to Parliament.
During the last regime, you were the Minister of Water Supply and Drainage, which many believe that you couldn't do much work for the people. If elected to Parliament and if you all are able to form a government, are you eyeing a particular portfolio?
No, I don't eye any portfolio, but it is clear that under my ministership, the largest number of connections to households in water was during my era, and the largest number of projects, some of it which has been just suspended for no reason by the present government. Even the project for North of Sri Lanka, Water for North, was launched during my time. So I am happy that though I had only water ministry, I did deliver the impossible, and even Colombo district has totally been piped under the projects for water connections.
Mr. Gunawardena, thank you very much for joining us right now on Biz1st Infocus. I wish you all the very best to be appointed to Parliament, and I'm looking forward to your party, if the people's will comes through, will be able to form a government as well. Always keep in mind that it is not an election that people have to keep in mind when they go to the polling booth. They have to always keep in mind it's all about the next generation. Go to the polling booth, vote wisely, think before you vote. Thank you very much. This is Biz1st.